You're listening to the Cynic Radio Podcast. Now, your hosts, Igri and Cynic.
And you are listening to episode 46 of the Cynic Radio Podcast, and I'm your host, Cynic. And joining me, as always, the new Sausage King of Chicago, my friend and yours, Igri. Ryan's back this week, and we are all set to discuss the epic Season 7 finale of Game of Thrones, because we are the Cynic Radio Podcast, and we want to thank you all for your continued support. Like, listen, and subscribe. Most importantly, enjoy the show. And it's time once again for the CRP's brief and vague recap. Who knew it, but Gendry could run like the wind, and Sansa and Arya won't be joining the Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants anytime soon, and Daenerys saves Jon Snow and company, but at what cost? With one hold my beer moment, the Night King gains himself a new certified used dragon, and all this leads to the Game of Thrones Season 7 finale entitled The Dragon and the Wolf. We open the episode with an army of Unsullied surrounding King's Landing, and they all look remarkable. From what I hear, they've been doing a lot of walking recently to keep in shape. IG, as Grey Worm glares up at Jaime and Bronn, how badly do you think he wants revenge for that leisurely stroll from Castle Rock that they just took?
You know, they might be a little bit upset that the Lannisters just decided to jump ship and get out. Literally, I think they jumped on a ship and got out to head down to Highgarden. And then they blew up all their boats. So the Unsullied are like, you know, we're all trained killers before we could walk. Y'all messed with the wrong crew.
You know, they don't do anything technically wrong in this show. It's usually pretty on par. But when they were changing views from the up above shot to the below shot, when the Dothraki pulled up on their horses, that wall looked awfully small compared to the looking down shot that Bronn and Jaime were looking at. I don't know if either one of you guys noticed that, but to me, it seemed a little bit odd.
It did, but sometimes perspective gets a little goofy. You know, I mean, you ever stood down at a swimming pool and look up at the high dive and go, oh, that's not so far. And then you get up there and you're like, oh my God, it's so far down. I can't do this.
And yet your brother chooses to side with the cockless. Well, he's always been a champion of the downtrodden, I guess. Ryan, as Jaime and Bronn discuss the importance of a family unit, has the show taught us an important lesson? Whether it be gold, power, women, war, in the end, is it just a giant game of cocks?
Yeah, I guess so. It was one of the funniest moments of the show. I don't know. I just felt Bronn has been my favorite character one of my favorite characters for a long time, but he just keeps building up his kind of ranking, I guess, in my own kind of personal favorite characters. I think he's amazing. That was a hilarious back and forth between them. But I guess in a lot of ways it is. It's legitimately a game of cocks, and maybe that's why the women are kind of in charge at this point, because they're all kind of it's been too much testosterone for so long that there's been a vacuum, and all of a sudden we've seen kind of a massive change in the world.
Well, in a game of cocks, wouldn't it be the women that would rule everything ultimately then?
I guess so, yeah.
If it was truly a game of cocks, I think Podrick would win, but that's besides the point.
Yeah, Pod's the man.
I always loved the Tyrion and Bronn dynamic. Bronn has a way of talking to the Lannisters like anybody else would talk to each other, and that always kind of brought perspective for Tyrion, and it seems like it's done a world of good for Jaime. I mean, if you look at Jaime from the beginning of their interactions or their relationship to now, even though he's paying him to be his friend, they seem a lot closer, and at this point, he's Jaime's biggest confidant. He kind of grounds Jaime. They're always, the back and forth is always a lot of fun and always very interesting, but I thought this in particular was probably the best written, because in the end, isn't that what it's all about? We're all just out there measuring dicks at the end of the day. If the Unsullied weren't enough, Jaime and Bronn, do you remember the screaming horde of Dothraki, don't you? If anything goes wrong, kill the silver-haired bitch first, and then our brother, and then the bastard from the north who calls himself king, and the rest, do in any order you see fit. IG, in this meeting of the Hall of Justice and the Legion of Doom, with Cersei's very volatile finger on the button, does it look like the meeting could go sideways in a hurry?
It sure does, and she's doing her best Lex Luthor impression at the moment. She's trying to figure out how she can still win with, the obviously unbeatable army at her doorstep, because they don't have the troops to deal with what they brought to the meeting. And the North didn't bring anybody, so you got to remember that. This is all just Daenerys' stuff. Yeah, it could go sideways really quickly. I'm honestly surprised she even went to the meeting or allowed it to happen.
The way the meeting was executed, I think, was great. So the execution, I think, was great. But the idea that that this meeting could happen without something going wrong from some end, it just defies belief for me. So I have a hard time buying it from the beginning. I had a hard time buying the whole idea of this just because it doesn't, like, it's too volatile. There are too many moving pieces and too many people who don't trust each other and or shouldn't be trusted. Again, I love the execution, but I just saw this as like, how realistic is it that they can all get together with all these moving parts and nobody die and nothing happen here? You know, especially here's a chance to like everybody has a chance to put an end to their, you know, opposition in that moment. How does nobody take that opportunity? So I don't know. I just had a really hard time with again, I love the execution. I think it was really well done, but I just have a hard time with the logic behind it. Well,
as they head to the pit though, and they've got the undead guy in the box, did the string and the acting and the writing ramp up the tension for you? I mean, they really did a good job selling it. Like, we don't know what the hell we're walking into.
Oh yeah. Yeah, no, they did a great job of building the tension and the interaction between the characters and the kind of intrigue from Cersei's side and the kind of fear and uncertainty from Tyrion and company. So I think they did a great job executing the scene and the mood. I just still had a hard time with the logic. So, which has been a theme for me. The entire season is kind of like, have a really hard time with the logic, but I'm loving how things are executed.
We get our first reunion of the show as Podrick and Tyrion haven't seen each other since the end of season 4. And I love Bronn's reference to Podrick's magic wand. IG, what did you think of the reunion? Like it or dislike it?
Oh, I love it. And that's one thing this show always does very well. They don't just put people together for no reason. When they're reuniting characters, it's usually some form of grand spectacle. It's really something awesome either is happening or is about to happen.
Right away, we get the most awkward of reunions, Reunion 2. And the Fox, at least according to Tormund's eyes, and the Hound. The last time these two saw each other, they couldn't keep their hands off each other's throats. They fought to near death trying to protect Arya. The only one who needs protecting is the one who gets in her way. IG, did it almost sound like Brienne and the Hound were speaking about Arya like proud parents?
It absolutely did. I mean, it's like they both spent enough time around her and saw some growth and saw it, you know, I mean, Brienne not as much from when she was younger, but the Hound absolutely saw her grow as they traveled together, and like she killed a couple of people, and then Brienne got to see the after product, you know, that she's a crazy psychopath that can really sling a sword now. I know we keep calling her a psychopath. She's probably not really. She's just more dangerous than any other girl in the Game of Thrones at this point. But yeah, they are pining over her latest things, and that is just awesome.
You know, the Hound doesn't show emotion or when he does show emotion, he has to hide it behind sarcasm or an insult. And so it was really a great scene, you know, that he obviously was interested in what happened to Arya, and he was like a surrogate parent. I mean, he did showcase some paternal instincts with her, and I think he genuinely did care about her, you know, in his own way. So, and you could see the like little smirk when she says that she can take care of herself, like that you know, almost like of a proud parent. So I definitely got that vibe from that scene, and especially from the Hound. I think he was maybe a little surprised that she was alive, but happy to see that she's kind of progressed into self-assured, you know, person who can protect herself.
Yeah, how uncomfortable is that? I mean, the only two things where you can get a natural reaction from the Hound is if you show him fire or you show him Brienne Tarth. The mere mention of her name last week just set him off. He's like, oh, Brienne Tarth. And then this week they come face to face. So that was a great interaction. I thought it was a great reunion. I liked how they handled it. We get reunion 3, Ryan. Bronn and Tyrion finally come face to face, at least on screen. And after their boasts and clever words, they both admit that they're happy to see each other again. This one in particular was my favorite because they shared some of the best moments together. Did it bother you as much as it bothered me to see them on opposite sides of this conflict? And do you think they'll ever be allies again?
I think they'll be allies again. I don't know. I just have the feeling. I think that it was great to see them. I wish we had a chance to see them when they met for the first time, because this definitely takes something away from it. Because even watching it, I was like, oh wow, it's Tyrion and Bronn. Oh, but they met already and we didn't get to see that. But it was nice for them to share their own affection for each other. And again, even though Bronn's like a sellsword, you know, you can see that between Tyrion and Jaime, he has developed a relationship with them. It was nice that they both kind of expressed their own kind of feelings towards each other. It was nice for him to, you know, say that he missed him. Yeah, I really loved being able to watch that scene. I just was a little disappointed that we didn't get to see that same scene a few episodes ago.
Or at least when they were alone, when they'd have have a chance to, or a minute or two to talk. That's the only thing that bothered me about this 7-episode run, is that they didn't allow for moments like that to really expand to what they could have been. It's like a brief back and forth, and we got to keep the storyline moving because we got 7 hours to get through. IG, what'd you feel about the reunion?
Yeah, it was just flat out bro love is what it looked like to me, that they were just happy to be around each other, and they understand that the situation that they're in is tense, and it's potential to have all of them get killed, and they're still taking that moment to say, you know, it's good to see you again. I'm glad I got to you. And it's really cool when people at this level, I mean, especially if you think about Tyrion, because, you know, Tyrion's been on the highest of the high and the lowest of the low, and here he is back on the upswing. And I mean, he's not really got a title. I think he said so himself at some point that, you know, his titles were removed as soon as he killed his father. He's still on an upswing, being hand to Daenerys. These are two men that are kind of on the uptick, and they were on the same side. Now they're not. They still care for each other very much. So I think if they ever got on a battlefield and they were the last two standing there, that battle might just be over, and they just say, well, we both win. I do think they're going to end up together again. I think they're going to end up on the same side. I think some things later in the episode lead to that potential. We'll get to that later.
In a battle of the title for fashionably late, our heroes show up in a very empty Dragon Pit arena. The tension continues to grow as the good guys look around. IG, did you feel like they were setting ducks for ambush? And what was the deal with Bronn and Podrick leaving pre-meeting for libations?
I thought they were absolutely sitting ducks. I thought something was going to happen, especially since all the Lannister guards were there with their shields and everything. They didn't really bring that many in from Daenerys' side or from the north. I thought it was trouble. And I thought Bronn taking Podrick out might actually have something to do with that trouble. Like, I don't know why they would save Podrick. Maybe so they could send him back north and say, look what happened or something. You know, because he's nobody. You don't want to save somebody important. You save more of a nobody, and Pod would be the nobody.
What do you think, Ryan? I mean, did Bronn and Podrick leaving pre-meeting seem a little weird to you?
It seemed weird, but for whatever reason, I didn't think that it had any significance to the plot. I don't know if it was just the way that the scene played, like the way it played out, that it was kind of very nonchalant or what. But for whatever reason, like when it happened, I just thought, it's a little strange. Like, why are they leaving? But I didn't think like, oh no, Daenerys is going to come in and just burn everybody, and leave them to kind of tell the tale. So yeah, again, I thought it was a little strange, but I just kind of glossed over it and kept on with like the tension of the scene.
Seems like every bad idea has some Lannister cunt behind it. And oddly enough, some Clegane cunt to see it through. Speaking of the brothers Clegane, the Mountain, and at least what's left of them, and the Hound haven't seen each other since all the way back in season 1 at the Hands Turning, when they came to blows. You're even uglier now than I am. What did they do to you? Does it matter? In the end, you know what's coming for your brother. You've always known. Ryan, I know this hit you right in the feels. What sense did you make of what the Hound said to the Mountain?
That was a little confusing. Like, on one hand, I was like, is there some like mystical or supernatural thing that the Mountain's scared of that the Hound brought up? Like, or is he just saying, I'm coming for you? Like, I was a little confused by the scene. I thought it works. I felt maybe a little forced that the Hound, all this is going on. He just walks up to him in the middle of this, but I did like it, and I loved his lines, like that he's ugly, you're uglier than me now. But yeah, I just thought it was a little like, I wasn't sure, like, is there something that I'm missing? Like, is this a book reference or something that happened like way back in season 1 that I just totally forgot about? Or is he basically just saying like, yeah, I'm coming for you?
Well, this to me was the whole build up to like the thing we just saw in real life here. This was McGregor Mayweather happening on Game of Thrones. And so this is all the pre-fight smack talk where they have the weigh-ins and everything else, and they're just having all the press and, yeah, I'm going to kick your ass. No, I'm going to kick your ass, except one of them doesn't talk. So the Mountain obviously did some stuff to the Hound when the Hound was much younger. The Hound, as we saw back in season 1, is no slouch anymore because he stood right eye to eye with the Mountain and kind of wasn't shook at all. I think the Hound has had enough, and I think what he's saying is Clegane Bowl is on its way, and I'm gonna kick your ass. That's all it said to me is like, your time is coming and I'm going to be the one to end you.
Yeah, I hope it's nothing more than that. It's nothing unexplained backstory that they're cursed, or I hope it's more of a direct the hounds like, all right, well, now it's time to get even. I don't care what they've done to you or how you look now, but now it's time for us to settle the score that we've had all these years. It's always good to see little brother finally be able to stand up to big brother, especially in an abusive relationship. IG, from the files of knowing how to make an entrance, Daenerys arrives on her dragon. Points to Dany. Did she one up the Mad Queen at this point? And if you had a dragon, would you just fly it everywhere? I mean, it certainly would make it easier for you to chase down the ice cream truck, wouldn't it?
Ice cream for days, my friend. And that's the thing. She didn't travel with you. No, she doesn't go by freight. She flies first class. She showed up with her dragon, and you could see that she tried to hold her composure, Cersei did. She tried to make sure that she didn't look like she was shook, but she was shook. She was a little bit like, yeah, that's a big one. I know Cersei peed a little right then. And second of all, I would have been willing to throw in the towel at that point. It'd been like, no, you win. We're good. Yeah,
just those things landing on the arena like that. I mean, that's got to leave an impression to anybody. I have a feeling that I would probably be like, all right, why don't we negotiate a permanent truce here? I really don't want that thing flying over and raining down fire on me. My favorite part of that, though, that whole scene was when Daenerys finally sits down and Cersei looks over awkwardly at her with pressed lips and clenched teeth and, we've been here for a while, when she was the one that was intentionally late to the meeting to begin with.
That just struck a chord. That was one of her funniest lines she's ever said. We've been waiting. Oh, no. You had to sit in your comfy chair in the shade from the tent while she was out flying on her dragon. Sorry. And she did apologize, too. I thought that was funny that Daenerys is like, I apologize.
And this one all hits home. Do you remember when we discussed dwarf jokes? Yeah, and his wasn't even good. You explained at the end. That always ruins it. Ryan, from threatening Theon to belittling Tyrion, no pun intended, did good old Uncle Euron remind you of that friend or relative that always has to drink at every social gathering and act a fool?
Definitely did. I had a landlord like that. It was like the sweetest guy, but like he would always they always had parties and get-togethers, and he was always that kind of drunk. It was like, it's not good, not a good look. It was a little over the top for Euron again. That was just a little strange. Like, why was he so? Is he that impatient, or was there something more to it? It was a little strange, that whole scene, but definitely, I guess it plays to his character. He's not going to sit down for anybody, and he kind of had to be called back by Cersei, and it was kind of funny to watch the mountain and him still kind of look at the mountain like not with fear but almost like intrigue, but like, all right, fine, I'll see this through.
He does do a good job of insulting, even though he had to explain his insult. And I like the charisma he brings, because he's so self-assured. It's like he doesn't care what anybody else thinks. He's just gonna do crazy shit because crazy shit is the thing to be done. He's just kind of one of those people that he's a one-upper, right? No matter what you've done, he's done something even more crazy. It's not always true. We've seen those people around where they're like, oh yeah, I did that. Well, no, you haven't, but he's going to tell you he did. And it comes up to bite him here in a little bit, sort of.
Yeah, well, he's angry Jack Sparrow, right? I mean, he's just over-the-top angry guy, and he's the new kid in school. None of these people other than Theon really know him, so he walks up and he punches the biggest kid in the face, or in Tyrion's case, the smallest kid. But don't explain it. He has to make an impression. He has to set the tone. But I love the wild card factor of Euron. I love that he's just a little bit off his rocker, which makes Cersei seem completely centered and neutral in every situation. He's the mad dog, and it's a great element to have on any evil team.
Does that make you think of anything like Charlie from Always Sunny? Wild card, baby.
That's right.
Woo!
He'll just set the car on fire while you're in it. IG reunions aside, with all these familiar faces together for the first time, we also had a bunch of reunions. Did it almost feel like a full-blown crossover of two of your favorite shows at the same time?
It almost felt to the point if we got this new Justice League movie and an Avengers movie and we slapped them together, because it was everybody going together all at the same time. They've been running storylines that have to do with each other for so long, but not including each other That's exactly what it felt like, and it was amazing. I mean, when you get the chemistry of all these very charismatic characters and you get to throw them all together, you get one of two things. Either it completely doesn't work and it's awful, or it just blends and it's so beautiful, and that's what this ended up. It was just amazing and beautiful to watch.
It's odd because we've been staring at these characters or these people for 7 years now, and some of them have never been in the same room together. So it was really interesting how they handled it, how they gave everybody a few lines. Even Theon got to throw a barb at his old uncle there, and Davos had a couple great lines. It was great to see, and it must have been a good time on set for all the actors to finally just actually get to work together. The Hound kicks the box, and out comes our single convenient undead friend, charging headlong at the King's Landing Raiders. For some reason, folks, the Lannister red and gold has been replaced with the silver and black. Maybe Team Lannister will move to Vegas after the season as well. Ryan, visually, how do you think the scene played out with the dragon pit and with the undead attack? Do you think it made the impact on Cersei that they desired?
Well, like, speaking of crossovers, I could swear that White ran off the set of The Walking Dead and into the dragon pit, because that looked like straight out of The Walking Dead. I almost want to go. I will want to go back and look at the previous episode to see if it looked exactly like that, because it really, like, I was just thinking, did they just use like The Walking Dead like makeup artists for this? But regardless, I thought the scene plays out really well. The fact that like he sprints towards Cersei, and she even in her attempt to maintain composure breaks a little bit, and I think that everybody realizes right away like, oh my god, this is insane. I like the way that it plays out, where it's like they split him into a bunch of pieces, and all the pieces are still moving, and then Qyburn, sick and twisted as he is looking at this like it's a new toy. He looked like a kid in the candy store holding the arm. So I do think that the scene plays out the way it does, and Cersei does crack a little bit, but then she's able to kind of regain her own composure very quickly.
Yeah, and speaking of the Lannister guards, what is the deal with the Darth Vader helmets? I mean, they changed all of a sudden. They came out that first time with the black and silver dudes. I'm like, why are they all wearing Darth Vader helmets?
Oh, you mean the Kingsguard, like with their weird, like,
they look like strange Darth Vader helmets. Yeah. I'm like,
didn't even think about that.
That's different.
Well, and the costumes have only gotten better for every single character except them. They've gotten worse, and I think the helmet choice was almost so they could show just enough of the mountain. He had just enough of his eyes, but it was terrible. It looked like something out of Spaceballs for me.
Well, it fits with Cersei's whole thing, right? Like her costume is kind of futuristic looking. So it kind of fits with like that she would have like Kingsguard kind of uniforms designed to look like out of like a space opera or something. Like they do look really bizarre, but I think it fits right in line with Cersei, like over the top, in your face. Like no class, I guess, if that's the right word, kind of tacky looking, just kind of, to me, it fits with what Cersei would have her Kingsguard dress as.
Yeah, but I didn't think that the Kingsguard had like different outfits they could even go to. They were the gold cloaks or whatever. Yeah. They wore, that was a Kingsguard outfit. Now all of a sudden we got, the Knights of Ren are joining up to do this.
This is Cersei. We didn't know there could be a female, a queen of the Seven Kingdoms either. So I guess she's just changing everything. She's the first to break the wheel before Dany.
There's only one war that matters, and it's the Great War, and it's here. And with that, old Uncle Rico stands up and says, "Screw you guys, I'm going home," and heads back to the Iron Island. And with that, IG, and Cersei's odd request for the King of the North to stay in the North and stay neutral, did it seem all a little too choreographed for you?
It really did seem a little like scripted. And I know it's a show that's scripted, but I'm talking about this interaction with everything is like, it seemed convenient. I think there was a reason it seemed convenient, but it really seemed even convenient at the moment. And I wasn't a big fan of Jon's reaction to what he was asked.
Like, I definitely felt like right when he gets up and leaves, like, wait, why would he just up and leave? That makes absolutely no sense. From a writing perspective, like, why not at least wait it out, see what they have to say, play the game. So I definitely thought, okay, either this is just bad writing again, or there's something nefarious going on. And then, it was interesting with Jon's reaction, because it's like, it's typical Stark, and they even allude to that. But, it's kind of like, God, I'm not gonna be able to come up with an example, but somebody like does something wrong or messes up, and they acknowledge that they do they're not good at that thing or they mess things up, but they still do it anyway. And it's like, well, what was the point? Like, that made no sense, and it puts them in a terrible position. And yeah, why go through all that? You know, Daenerys lost Viserion because of him and because of this, and to throw it all away because of his stupid pride, like, just made absolutely no sense. But I guess it does kind of, you know, goes to show, like, the Starks are idiots sometimes, you know, and their loyalty goes before, you know, common sense. But it's a little, you know, tough to decide whether I, you know, like the scene or not, that part of the scene, because it's like, why would you do that?
But it does really reinforce that he was raised by Ned Stark, that he lives under that guideline, that's who he believes he is. He is a Stark child. He is a Stark. There's just no question how you behave in those situations. Even if it potentially endangers everything that's going on, you'd take the right road.
Well, and I love the reaction to everybody involved, because Tyrion's like, it's great that you bent the knee. I would have advised it if you asked, but have you ever considered lying just a little bit, you know, just to help us out? Just one white lie, Jon Snow. And somewhere in the distance, I could hear Sir Alistair say, you see, Lord Snow, this is why we can't have nice things. He would have just completely laughed at that faux pas. I mean, Ryan, was his refusal to Cersei's only demand? Was it to impress a girl, or was it about telling the truth? Or does he only have one working need to bend? I mean, did he just blow it in that instance?
He lets his honor and his pride go before everything. And, you know, even, or you know, his, not even that, his duty before everything. So, you know, his duty is to protect the North, and he will do anything in his power to protect the North. And he's just this brooding, like, all he talks about is the threat to the North, and that's it. And, it, you know, almost, it's, you know, a funny enough joke that SNL made had a great skit on that a year ago, and he's only gotten worse. And then, you know, he's going to bend the knee to Daenerys. So he, you know, that's his duty, and he's got to let everyone know. And it's kind of like, yeah, hold some stuff close to the vest, you know, every once in a while. It just, you know, I get it. I understand you're Stark, but he really does blow it in this at this point. You know, seriously, I mean, all he's got to do is lie. And, you know, not like Cersei's not going to do it. It's not like she hasn't done horrible things to him and his family. So, you know, just in that moment, he really just drops the ball. I mean,
it's hard to stay virtuous, right? When you're talking to somebody and you know that every word that comes out of their mouth is probably a lie. Like, they're going to lie about what they had for breakfast, and they're going to lie about what time they went to bed last night. Jon Snow is made of something completely different than anybody else in that instance, because IG, would you do the right thing in that instance, or would you be like, all right, yeah, sure, I'll stay out of it. I'll stay in the North, no problem. I mean, it's not like they didn't show up together, right?
You know, it might have been good to just, at the moment, do the thing that Tyrion said, tell a little bit of a lie. Are they going to send people with you to make sure you stay there? Are they going to set Lannister guards right outside of Winterfell and be like, no, you stay here, or we're going to send a raven? No, tell the lie, move your agenda. So, yeah, he kind of blew it a little bit there, but it's Jon. I mean, that's just what Jon does. So you almost have to expect it.
Well, it's kind of like the old philosophical kind of question. Like, if you believe in, like, you know, there are moral principles that you don't break, and you're in Nazi Germany, and you're hiding a family of Jewish people in your basement, and the Nazis come by. Do you lie, or do you lie to save their lives and save them from being murdered, or do you tell the truth? You can't uphold every single moral standard 100%. It's just not possible. Things will conflict. And in this case, do you really want to protect the North and protect everybody, you know, not just the North, but all of Westeros? Do you want to protect them, or do you not want to lie? And in this is a case where, yeah, lying is the morally right thing to do at this point, especially considering that his primary objective for the last 7 seasons has been to protect the North against, you know, the White Walkers and that threat. Protect Westeros from the White Walkers and the threat to the North.
But do you guys believe that if he would have Cersei in her demand, that she was actually going to stay true to her word, that she would, stop with what she was doing and, let everything take place in the North before they resume battles? Or was this just a convenient way to get up and storm out?
I think that Cersei she's volatile, but she's an opportunist. So I think that Cersei may have agreed to send the troops north, and she probably would have. I'm sure she still would have alternative plans, protect herself and her interests, but I do think that maybe she would have gone along with the plan to some extent. You know, I definitely never expect her to do the altruistic, selfless thing, but I think that once Jon says that, I think that cements in her mind, like, I can't trust them. They are going to come for me, and I need to do whatever I can to decimate them and defeat them. And so I think that Jon saying that definitely cements that she's going to have to, go against them.
You're bringing that up with Cersei. I don't think that would have made any difference at all. I think some of that was just seeing what button she could push. What could she make happen at that moment? Because, I mean, all it does is benefit her if she makes that request and Jon goes, yeah, okay, yeah, we'll go back to the north. We'll stay there. That's fine. That just puts her in a better position because that's less people she has to worry about. So I think that was just positioning. I think that was seeing what she could get away with. I don't think she would have done anything different, even if they would have said yes.
This goes back to the mole in the camp thing. I assume that she already knew, or she had guessed that Jon Snow had already committed, and she knew that would be the one inflammatory thing that she could get up and march out on. It was almost like verbal chess, where I know you're going to do this, and I'm going to do that, and I'm going to do this, but then I'm going to do that, and I'm going to checkmate you. And I thought that was the way for her to gain the power position in the meeting was, well, I'm going to question this Jon Snow, and he's going to tell the truth, and then I'm going to blow up, and I'm going to storm out. And I kind of think they had that plan from jump, pretty much. For Jon's sins, Tyrion has to go to the Principal Cersei's office and hash it out, with the Mountain to the left of him and the Mad Queen to the right. Here I am stuck in the middle in this, IG. Did you believe there was a chance in hell of Tyrion walking out of there alive?
I was pretty sure that he was going to come out alive. I didn't see that as an opportunity for him to get killed. Mostly because I didn't see any way that would benefit Cersei in the long run. Because right now it seems like most of the stuff she's doing is long game stuff. She wants to win. And killing Tyrion at that moment means that Daenerys there with her massive dragon might just say, well, time to burn shit up. And I think Cersei knows that. So, no, I didn't think he was going to die, but I'm surprised that he got to talk as much as he did.
Well, Tyrion makes a clear point where when, subtle but very effective, that he's the one reining Daenerys in, that she wants to burn the place down and he's the one stopping her. So, yeah, I think I was less concerned for him than other characters in this episode, but I definitely think that she still has to play the game, and she realizes she's at a huge disadvantage at this point, and she's very close to having that threat disappear for at least the short term. So it wouldn't make sense to basically cut off the head of the one person that's between her and just ultimate decimation and destruction.
Tyrion walks into a bad situation there. I mean, another reunion, him and his sister, the last time they saw each other, she was gleefully waiting for him to be sentenced to death at the end of The Mountain and the Viper. I mean, it was rough. Ryan, what were your thoughts on this amazingly acted scene between Lena Headey and Peter Dinklage? You could smell the contempt in the air, and were you disappointed at the revelation that you're pregnant and then they cut away?
I love the scene. I thought it was really great. Again, it was really well acted, and their scenes together have always been well acted. There's real tension, and there's real contempt from her to him, and there's a real kind of almost like childlike plea or want for approval or attention from Tyrion's side, and you could see him try to reason with her, and she doesn't want to hear it. And so I thought the scene played out really, really well. I think that she wanted him to know. I think she's playing him at this point. Like, I think Cersei is a better player of the game at this point. I still think she makes bad choices often, but I think that she wanted him to know, because at this stage she needs Daenerys and Tyrion to think that she's got something to live for and to fight for. Otherwise they just think she's just in it for herself, and she doesn't care about anybody but herself, and she doesn't care about anything but being the ruler of the Seven Kingdoms. So if she can plant the seed in Tyrion's mind that there's something else she has to fight for, and he knows how much she loves her children, then that planting that seed will maybe allow Tyrion to think that she's gonna play a little bit fairer, and she has something to fight for. So I think at the end of the scene, ultimately, it's Cersei playing Tyrion.
Well, I wasn't sure that they were being conned until she comes back out and she's like, not only am I not going to stay out of the fight, but I'm going to march and help you guys. Because, and then you can all remember when this is all done, it was Team Cersei that helped you out. I was like, oh, she's screwing with us all. IG, I mean, one conversation with Tyrion, is it a life changer? I mean, is it like finding Jesus? Did you believe that switch in position?
No, I didn't believe it. Again, Cersei's playing a long game, and she's trying to figure out what she can get away with. So if she promises something and then doesn't show up, that's standard Lannister type action, right? We're going to come and we're going to save this, and then you get all ready for battle, and all right, they'll be coming right over there, over that hill to the left. Anytime now. Here they come. So it looks like the standard Cersei type of thing where she makes them believe, because, I mean, why wouldn't you want to get involved? They all saw that the white scared the hell out of her. Yeah, she wants to save everything, but they just, if they believe it, they don't know Cersei well enough. And I would hope that if Tyrion isn't a mole, he would let them know that, yeah, she said they're coming. Don't bet on it.
As Lord Baelish leads Sansa in a game of always assume the worst, the manipulation continues. Was this a below-the-belt attempt, even for the world's greatest manipulator? Did it disgust you? I mean, every week we see Littlefinger fall to new and new lows. Is there anything this guy won't do to try to further his agenda?
I've come to expect nothing less from Littlefinger. I think at this point, I was more, I don't know, surprised at how confident he was at, at that point. It seemed like he was really sure of himself, and I don't know, I just felt like something was off. Like I felt like, Sansa was maybe manipulating him a little bit, and he just seemed a little too self-assured and a little too confident in his manipulation of Sansa, and she just seemed to be going a little too far overboard. So I started to think, okay, something's up here. It doesn't seem like it seems like this a bit of a misdirection at this point.
Wouldn't he be confident though if it's working? Because that's all it says. Every little thing that he's done up here at Winterfell especially has given him results. It's all blossomed into fruit. It's all done something. And it's all done something that he wanted it to do. It's all pushing in the right direction. He's got this strife between the sisters. He's got them trying to jostle between each other and figure things out. Meanwhile, he's standing on the outside just pushing the buttons. So yeah, he's really sure of himself because I think he thinks he's right there at the end of the road.
Yeah, I don't know, because he's had his foot in the water for a while, and he's been kind of testing it out. And to me, I thought he would have picked up on Sansa's over-compliance and not dove in, but he dove all the way in head first in the shallow end. He was going for the kill at this point. He was done playing around, and it just seemed weird. It seemed like Ryan keeps complaining, like a breakneck pace. It seemed like he went from playing the long game to just jumping right in. You thought he would pick up on the signs that, this girl is just falling for everything I say, and she's been resistant to just about everything that Littlefinger's pushed across since they've gotten back to Winterfell.
I think the biggest problem there is that there's no moon door in Winterfell that he could just quickly get rid of somebody.
Yeah, I just thought it definitely felt like it was too fast of a transition. And yeah, when she does interact with him, it's always with disdain. She's always got a wall up. She's always kind of, keeping him at arm's length. So to all of a sudden seek his counsel, dealing with her sister, no less, that just was like, okay, this is weird. And how does Littlefinger not see this? Like, for somebody who plans for everything and looks for the worst in everyone, and then, operates that way, the whole speech he gave her, like, how is he not applying the same thing? Like, it just felt like that was like, okay, again, it was kind of like, he's been such a great character up until this season. It was like, come on, you're going to fall for that, Littlefinger?
Even though the king of the friend zone, Jorah, objects, Jon and Dany are going to, air quotes, sail together to White Harbor. IG, is there a chance that this becomes a new metaphor for getting down? And was Jorah just trying to cockblock Jon?
No, I think Jorah made a valid point that, you put yourself in more danger. You get a couple thousand feet in the air. Doesn't matter what kind of crossbow or arrows they got. They aren't going to be able to reach you. But yeah, I think quote unquote sailing might be the new thing. We're going to go for an afternoon sail. Why not? Boat sex for the win.
Yeah, I saw a video over the course of a week how the interaction between Jon and Jorah might have been the world's most Jedi C-block. Like, you keep the sword and you give it to your children, and knowing full well that Dany can't have any. So I don't know whether it was or it wasn't, but it would be hard to sit in council when nothing you say gets listened to, and that's the position Jorah's in. How often does Daenerys follow Jorah's advice? I mean, she's nice to him and she loves having him around, but every time he opens his mouth, he just gets countermanded by the flavor of the week, whether it be Jon Snow or the next guy or the next guy after that. At a certain point, you got to kind of feel for him. Ryan, you don't need to choose between being a Greyjoy or a Stark. You're both. Jon forgives Theon for what he can, and Theon takes a beating for his effort in trying to rally the Ironborn to save Yara. Can he find redemption in a rescue?
I think so. I think this was maybe beginning of his kind of redemption arc. He reached a low at, in I believe it was episode 2, where he jumps off, instead of trying to save her, and almost we saw him revert back to Reek. But I think in this situation, by getting some amount of forgiveness from John and kind of retaking his own position, but not really retaking his position, except to say that he's going to do what he can to save Yara, and he owes that to her. I definitely see it as a redemption arc. Thought it was a little comical that he gets kicked in where his nuts should have been, and he didn't react. Like, come on, that still would hurt. Like, it's not like you get hit full blast anywhere in the body and it's not going to hurt. But it was kind of funny them playing that scene, and kind of like the Tyrion, mentioning that you can't, you don't need to explain the joke. In this case, it was kind of a bit of visually explaining what was going on, whereas like he kicks him in the nuts a couple times, he stands there, he smiles like, okay, I got it the first time that he doesn't have any, and it's not going to hurt as much as it would hurt a normal person. But other than that, I think the scene plays out well and does begin his own kind of redemptive arc.
Well, it takes a lot of balls to stand up to the Ironborn, and I guess even if you don't have any balls, he's got a lot of balls to stand up to the Ironborn.
Well, and it's funny because he goes from like beaten, barely able to stand, and then he gets kicked a couple times in the groin, and he hulks up like Hogan did in the 80s. I was just like, uh-oh, it's on now, because he just gets this big grin. The only thing he was missing, IG, was him yelling, "I don't know you. That's my purse," after he gets kicked in the non-existent groin. Back at Winterfell, Sansa decides to put her sister on trial for murder and treason. And how do you answer these charges, Lord Baelish? IG, wait, what in the entire fuck just happened? How did you feel about the trial of Littlefinger? Did it give you pleasure? Do you deny it? Do you deny it?
I don't deny it. Oh, that trial was so awesome. It was so amazing, and especially with useless Bran sitting next to her going, "No, you did this." Finally, he does something awesome. Finally, he has something useful to do. Rather than his standard thing to do lately is do that old vegan joke where he tells you all the time that he's a vegan. No, I'm the three-eyed raven. He's just going to keep telling you, I'm the three-eyed raven. Great. Well, now the three-eyed raven is actually like, well, I'm a witness, and this is what you did. I loved that, and just kept bringing up everything he did. You did this. Do you deny it? And you did this thing. Do you deny that? Amazing.
Not only is Brandon Stark the ultimate creep, but he's now the ultimate tattletale as well. I mean, he's going to, no matter what you're doing in life, he's going to see you and he's going to judge you. And that's just a little unsettling for me. I don't think I could have that guy around with some of the stuff that I pull.
He's keeping Santa's list.
Exactly.
Yeah. I love the way I love the way the scene plays out with just like the smugness and the confidence that he does generally have, and that the look he gets when she calls him out, and then him kind of, he's never been in this spot, and where we contrast that with other characters in this episode who are facing death potentially, where they basically embrace it and say, all right, we'll do it, kill me. He cowers. And I guess, it goes to show what kind of, character he is under pressure, under that kind of stress. And, I think it was like bittersweet, because I think it was a great scene and it plays out really well. But again, I can't help but wonder, like, if they didn't do his character justice this season, and that, just it seemed like he didn't play up to his normal, maybe he was distracted. Maybe his love for Sansa, conflicting with his desire to eventually sit on the Iron Throne, that was what caused his demise. Who knows? But it was a little bit bittersweet, but I do think that it played out great, and the performance was amazing throughout.
Yeah, and it makes you wonder too, if he didn't get tangled up with Sansa, if he didn't choose to go that route with all this, would it ended differently for him? He's like, I loved your mother since I was a child, and she's like, you betrayed her, and I love you, but you betrayed her. He ended up crying and begging on his knees, and then Arya just simply walks up and puts him out of his misery. Do you think it was a fitting end for him, Ryan?
Yes and no. I think he deserves an end like that. He definitely, for all of his scheming, and something's going to backfire at some point. And he's crossed everybody. It's just that no one or very few people really know that he's crossed them. So I think he deserves an end like that. I just think that I wish that his character didn't make so many kind of fatal mistakes this season. Like, he could have, all everything could have gone down the same way, but him be a little bit more like the Littlefinger we've come to know. I just think that he just really screwed up this season. But I do think that was the type of end he was going to get, because he's crossed everybody and he's only looking out for himself. You contrast it with Varys, who Varys has crossed a lot of people as well, but he's doing it for what seems to be a noble purpose. So you can sympathize with him a little bit, where with Littlefinger it's so selfish that he definitely deserves an end like that.
Well, you see this on Survivor so many times. Do you have that one player that has the game locked down? It's really any reality show, and they get overconfident, and then they start downplaying everybody else and talking smack, and it slowly starts. From season 1, Littlefinger's had this game on lockdown. He's controlled everything and everybody, even Varys to a point. He was playing the perfect game until Sansa, and isn't it a woman that always is your undoing? Chaos may be a ladder, but it's definitely a dagger in the hands of the Stark girls. When the fighting in the north is over, someone wins. You understand that, don't you? If the dead win, they march south and they kill us all. If the living win and we betray them, they march south and kill us all. Jaime makes plans to take the army north to fulfill his promise that the Queen made, and in true Lannister fashion, Cersei reneges. By not helping, is she basically putting a Band-Aid on cancer? Even with 20,000 Gold Company soldiers incoming, is she just buying a little more time at this point?
Well, if the Knight's army, the Night King's army, is not able to be defeated, she could bring 100,000 of the golden soldiers, and it's not going to matter, because one, she doesn't have the dragon glass. She doesn't know how to fight these things. She certainly doesn't have a dragon, and each one of the soldiers that the Night King's army kills is going to turn into one for them. So that's the thing, they all die and then they get back up and now they're on the other team. If you don't have dragon glass and the rest of the things that they're mining for the people in the north, you're just in trouble. I think it's very short-sighted. I think she doesn't know what she's getting into, because unless she's willing to leave King's Landing, it's kind of landlocked. There's water on the outside, but land leads right into it, so she'd be toast.
And I think if you're Cersei, from her perspective, it's probably the best move to make. If you look at it, okay, if she sends her soldiers and they fight, then everybody loses people. And even if the living win, she'll have an army that's decimated, and then she still has to deal with Daenerys, Jon Snow, and dragons. And there's really no chance of victory. Her only real chance of staying on the Iron Throne is to hope that either side that wins. Well, I guess if the Night King wins, then all of the dead become part of the army. So she's screwed that way. So if the Night King wins, she's screwed. But if Daenerys and Jon Snow can win, but their armies are decimated enough that maybe that gives her a chance to fight them off. And I think she realizes that's her one chance. And now, being somebody whose only goal is to sit on the Iron Throne, then it makes sense. Maintain your army, maintain your forces, bring in reinforcements, and fight a battle against a weakened army. Again, the alternative is Night King wins, and probably not going to win that war anyway. So I think from her perspective, it makes sense if she wants to sit on the Iron Throne. If she wants to live, though, that's probably not the best choice.
No. Jaime and Tyrion both survive a game of let's tempt Cersei to kill me with the mountain. I don't want to be the third person that tries that. But Ryan, as Jaime rides north, a great visual as the snow begins to fall on King's Landing. Where does this leave him and Cersei in terms of the story? And more importantly, what happens to Bronn?
I honestly think Bronn will be not too far behind Jaime. I don't know what's Bronn going to do. Hang out with the mountain, hang out and quip with Cersei. That'll get him killed really quickly. So I have a feeling that Bronn will seek out Jaime or head north, try to get a castle. But I really don't think that he'll stay in King's Landing. I do think it was a great, beautiful scene, and I'm wondering what does Jaime do? Does he try to maybe go to get some Lannister reinforcements, or does he just go north himself? Does he meet up with Brienne? I thought it was a really, really well done scene, and definitely kind of got the feels there. And as far as him and Cersei, I don't know. I feel like that might be it. If he ever sees her again, it's to kill her. And otherwise, I think that's it for him and Cersei as far as their interactions. I honestly think that if and when he interacts with her, he's the Valonqar, right? He's the one that will kill her. But otherwise, I really do think that was it.
Yeah, I think that he is had his honor tested way too much by Cersei, and this was the final straw. He was done. And this is where I think that Bronn and Tyrion end up back on the same side, because I think Jaime sees the threat as real. I think Jaime cares about what happens to the kingdom. He doesn't want it to just get overthrown. It's not about who sits on the Iron Throne. It's about, does everybody get to live? And like I've said in previous episodes, I think Jaime is a lot better person than he's been given credit for. And it's shown more and more as we get further along. I mean, it started showing how good he was when he was with Brienne and saved her from getting raped. And it just kind of gets better and better. So I think, there's a lot of things going on here. But most importantly, Jaime is an honorable man, and he doesn't care that Cersei doesn't want to do that. I hope that he gathers some bannermen, but if he just goes himself, that's going to say a lot to the rest of the cold people up north. It's going to say a lot to Jon. It's going to say a lot to Tormund, and probably a lot to Tyrion that Jaime is there and Jaime's willing to fight.
Forgive me if I'm wrong, but when he left, and by the way, which was one of the most beautifully shot scenes in the whole series, when he left, there wasn't a hint of Lannister anywhere on him. It was just him, not in armor, in plain clothes, just riding away, overlooking King's Landing. I thought that was fantastic, and in that moment, Jaime Lannister became exactly who he always wanted to be. What happens when you put the person who knows everything and the person who's read everything in the same room, IG? We get the answer to the question we've been waiting all along. His name isn't Snow or Sand. We learn that he's not Jon Snow at all, but Aegon Targaryen, and he's the heir to the Iron Throne. How do you feel that this big reveal was handled, and where does this leave Jon and Daenerys in their budding relationship?
I like how it was handled. I know it happened kind of quickly, but I mean, really, this news has been coming for a couple of years. Like, we got the stuff at the Tower of Joy beginning like last season, so we knew it was coming. We heard the kind of throwaway line from Gilly when they were still down at Old Town. Apparently, he was paying attention. So, yeah, that was a throwaway thing, but he was paying attention. He heard it happen, and he transcribed the book. The fact that they were able to put their two things together and come up with an actual viable reason that Jon Snow is a Targaryen, is Aegon Targaryen. The thing I would have a problem with is trying to go from calling him Jon Snow to calling him Aegon Targaryen. I don't know as even Jon would be comfortable going from Jon Snow to Aegon Targaryen, because he's been Jon Snow his whole life, and he's comfortable with who he is. That's one thing about Jon. He's become very comfortable in being Jon Snow.
It played out really well. We all knew it was coming. I think this is a theory that people who read the books have had for a very, very long time. And yeah, we had the Tower of Joy scene. There was a throwaway line, so we knew this was coming. So I think it was the challenge for the director, right, and the showrunners was to make it play out in a way that was meaningful. And I think interplaying that with Jon and Dany and the boat sex and the kind of narration, I think it worked well once you got past a little bit of creepiness that it's still his aunt. It was definitely, it played out. It had the meaning and gave me the feels that I think it was supposed to for something that was that important. It had the weight of a scene that was that important, but at the same time, they didn't treat it like a shock. I think they realized that people knew this was coming, and so I think it had the right. It was kind of they handle it delicately, and I think with the right amount of kind of everything kind of put together to really make it feel like a powerful moment.
It unsettled me a little bit as a fan of Robert Baratheon to know that, his whole rebellion was built on a lie, that the woman that he pined for up until the day that he died never truly loved him, and he threw his relationship with Cersei away, which it looks like at some point Cersei was really invested in and wanted to work on longing for somebody that never cared about him. That kind of bothered me a little bit. I was like, oh, this just sucks. The lone wolf dies, but the pack survives. Arya and Sansa finally bury the dagger and admit that they need each other. But out in the woods, the three-eyed raven sees something very sinister happening in the north. The undead army has arrived at the wall. The Night King and his new pet dragon begin to hit the wall with eerie blue flame over and over and over again till it collapses to the ground. It has begun. Hundreds of thousands of undead soldiers pour through the opening in the wall. And my friends, winter is here. Ryan, your thoughts on the finale, the final scene, the episode, and your rating?
I thought the finale was really strong. I know I have my, I think where I had larger complaints about the show for the previous episodes, I think this season in general has been up and down. Like the highs have been really high and the lows have been really low. And it's hard to kind of judge, but I think this episode got back to, it took its time, which I really like. That first scene took, I don't know, 30, 40 minutes or something crazy. But I think that it really took its time throughout the entire episode, whether it was the scenes with Baelish and Sansa or the scenes in the dragon pit. It really allowed, even the final scene with the dragon taking down the wall, like it really allowed time to breathe in a way that none of the episodes this season have given us. So I really thought that this was maybe the strongest episode of the season, in that way. I would say my rating, I'd give it a 9.5. I think I thought it was a really strong episode. I love the interaction, the little kind of walk and talk interactions between the different characters. They really played the weight of that scene where all of these characters are getting together was really played well. The initial interactions between Daenerys and Cersei worked really well. And again, I have a couple nitpicky things, but otherwise I think it was a really, really strong episode that went back to the Game of Thrones, that I like, which, not that I don't like the other episodes. I think some of the episodes this season have been fantastic. I like that they slowed things down and really allowed room to breathe and really allowed us to be enveloped in the scenes with these characters. So I would definitely give it a 9.5. And to me, one of the stronger final episodes. Maybe not as good as the Winds of Winter, but it's right up there and definitely a very strong episode.
Yeah, The Dragon and the Wolf to me was the perfect ending to a near perfect season. In the end, it's a lesson to everyone. If you stick your little finger in places that it shouldn't be, eventually it's going to get chopped off. I mean, we say goodbye to the master manipulator, and it kills me because he brought so much to the show. What bothers me the most, though, is that we have to wait an undetermined amount of time for the conclusion of one of the greatest stories ever told. Great acting this season by the entire cast. And in this episode in particular, Peter and Lena just brought it. I mean, that scene between them was amazing. And don't even get me started because I can go another hour on the dragon hitting the wall and it collapsing and what happened to Tormund in the end. I mean, there's just so many unanswered questions and we just have no idea when we're going to get any kind of finalization on it. So I give the episode a 9. I loved it. 80 minutes wasn't near enough. I could have won another 80 and I can't wait for next season.
This episode for me has got to be a 9.5. It is beautifully shot, magnificently acted, and just amazing things happening. Pieces moving, just not as apparent as other places. We're going to miss Baelish. Nobody can Littlefinger like Littlefinger. That being said, there's so many things that are going to happen, and who knows how long we're going to have to wait, just like Cynic said. This season has been a roller coaster, and I can't wait to get back on. There you go, Cynic Radio Podcast. We'll call it 9.25. Go watch it. Go rewatch this whole season. Live the roller coaster one more time. You're really going to enjoy it. And that's it. The end. You have reached the finale of Game of Thrones Season 7 and the end of Episode 46 of the Cynic Radio Podcast. I'm Igor He. With me this week has been my co-host and the man who always wants to taste the beast, the spokesman for Minotaur, your friend of mine, Cynic. Also joining us this week has been Ryan George from the Jimwits Podcast. You can find him over at thejimwits.com. Send us your comments, questions, concerns, and some extra boxes of tissue while we wipe away the tears from having to wait at least a whole nother year for Game of Thrones to come back to cynicradio@gmail.com. Find us on the internet at cynicradio.com. Look for us on Facebook at facebook.com/cynicradio and find us on Twitter at cynicradio. Head on over to tpublic.com, search for Cynic, C-I-N-I-K, and get yourself your own Cynic Radio Podcast gear. You know you need a t-shirt, and we've got the t-shirts to make you cool. We love all your support. Listen, like, and share to all of your friends the Cynic Radio Podcast. We're going to be here for you each and every week with new and exciting fun and adventure. And until next time, don't get captured.
Follow the podcast on Twitter, Facebook, and at cynicradio.com. Available for download on iTunes.